Once upon a time, there was a small village named Korora. This village sat by a winding river and was surrounded by fields that were once full of healthy crops. The people in Korora lived simple lives, waking at sunrise to tend to their farms or small shops. Nobody expected that one day, the village would face a strange and troubling change that no one could have predicted. In the early days, the villagers enjoyed a peaceful routine. Neighbors greeted each other with warmth, and families gathered each evening around smoky fires. Children laughed as they played by the riverbanks, and elders told stories of better times. Life in Korora seemed steady, even if it was never rich or famous. Little did anyone know that events were unfolding far away, which would soon affect every home in Korora. Across the region, an economic downturn began to spread. Factories in nearby cities closed their doors, and trading routes slowed. In the village, men who traveled to the city for work started returning empty-handed. Harvests were poorer than before, and the local market shrank. The younger generation felt the pressure, unsure if they could find work to support their families or even themselves in these hard times. Slowly, frustration built up. Young men left for distant places, hoping to find jobs. Some never came back. Others returned even more discouraged. The villagers whispered that their homeland was cursed, but they had no proof of any curse. All they knew was that money was scarce, and each day brought new worries. The winds of change began to stir quietly. With the men away or unemployed, families struggled to buy basic needs. Mothers worried about feeding their children, and fathers felt ashamed if they had no earnings. The fields could not produce enough to sell at a fair price. The soil seemed tired, and the once strong community started showing signs of stress. Yet, no one realized just how drastic the situation would become in the near future. One night, a traveling merchant passed through Nkurara. He brought tales of a distant city where money flowed more easily, and where many kinds of work awaited those brave enough to leave home. People listened with interest, but few could afford the trip. Most were too afraid of the unknown. Still, his words planted a small seed of curiosity in the minds of those who felt cornered by poverty. Among the villagers was a young woman named Zola. She was known for her warm smile and her willingness to help neighbors in need. Zola had grown up dreaming of becoming a teacher. She studied under the village's only schoolmaster, but as times grew tough, the schoolmaster left for the city, leaving her with no mentor and no chance to earn a living from her passion for teaching. Zola tried to adapt by selling handmade crafts, but buyers were few. She noticed other women also struggled. Some sold food at the market, some wove baskets, and some offered house cleaning services, but there simply wasn't enough money to go around. Late at night, Zola would stare at the moon, wondering if there was a path to survival she hadn't considered. She never imagined how desperate the times would become. As the months passed, the village became a gathering spot for whispered complaints. Women exchanged stories of unpaid debts and hungry children. They spoke of men who had disappeared without a trace. Each new sunrise brought a sense of dread rather than hope. Zola listened quietly, feeling the tension thicken like a storm cloud waiting to break. One afternoon, an older widow named Mama Deni returned from a trip to a distant town. She arrived with a heavy bag of supplies and a curious gleam in her eye. Some villagers asked how she had managed to get money for so many items, but Mama Deni only smiled and changed the subject. People began to suspect that she had discovered a new way to earn money. Mama Deni's sudden wealth made her the topic of many late-night discussions. The villagers were eager to learn her secret, but she remained tight-lipped. Slowly, a rumor spread that she had found work in the city's nightlife, serving drinks or entertaining guests. This rumor sparked both intrigue and disapproval. Some called her brave, while others whispered that she had crossed a moral line. Zola tried to ignore the gossip, but she could not deny that Mama Denny's improved life was tempting. If an older widow could find a way to bring back money, perhaps younger women could do the same. The thought both frightened and intrigued her. She had always believed in working honestly, yet desperation gnawed at her. With the village economy in freefall, she felt cornered by her own needs and responsibilities. Eventually, Mama Denny admitted to a few close friends that she had indeed traveled to the city to work as a hostess in a private club. She explained that men paid for company, drinks, and conversation. The money was much higher than anything she could earn selling local produce. Word spread quickly among women in the village who were out of options. Some villagers judged her harshly, calling her actions shameful. Others, however, were too desperate to care. They saw Mama Denny's bag of supplies and envied her ability to feed herself and help her relatives. Zola watched from a distance, her heart heavy. She felt torn between her old beliefs and the harsh reality that, without some income, her family might starve. A few weeks later, 2 more women from the village disappeared without warning. They returned after a month, carrying full sacks of goods and wearing confident smiles. Their children had new shoes, and their huts were stocked with fresh supplies. Suspicion quickly turned into open curiosity. The village women whispered about night work, while the men either pretended not to notice or simply lacked the energy to confront the issue. Zola saw that, despite the whispers, these women had changed their fortunes almost overnight. She began to wonder if this was the only path left. Her own mother had fallen ill, and the medicine was expensive. Each day, Zola's worry grew. The more she thought about it, the more she felt pushed toward a choice she never imagined making. Late one evening, Zola found herself outside Mama Denny's home. She had come, reluctantly, to ask how the older woman had found her city connections. Zola's voice trembled as she explained her mother's illness and her family's growing debts. Mama Denny listened without judgment. She confessed that the work was not easy. It involved catering to men's desires and often facing scorn. But the money, she said, was undeniable. With tears in her eyes, Zola asked Mama Denny if there was another way. The widow shook her head sadly, saying she had tried everything else first, selling crops, weaving baskets, even washing clothes for city folks. Nothing brought in enough money to survive. She warned Zola that once she entered this line of work, it would be hard to return to a normal life. Zola left that night feeling torn and fearful. Days turned into nights of sleepless worry. Zola's mother's health declined, and medical costs rose. Her younger siblings were hungry, and the few crops they had left were destroyed by pests. Zola searched for any odd job, cleaning houses or carrying water, but the pay was meager. She found herself standing at a crossroads, realizing that moral judgments sometimes lose power when real survival is at stake. Finally, Zola made a choice. She packed a small bag and left for the city, following directions given by Mama Denny. She felt shame and fear mingled with a flicker of hope that she might save her family from ruin. On the morning she left, the sky was overcast, as if nature itself understood the heavy burden on her shoulders. When Zola arrived in the city, she was overwhelmed by the noise and rush of life. The tall buildings and busy streets felt alien to her. With Mama Denny's help, she found a small room to share with another village woman who had come months earlier. This woman, named Korora, explained the basics of the trade, how to find clients, how to stay safe, and what fees to charge. At first, Zola couldn't believe she was even listening to these details. She felt like a lost child, torn between her conscience and her need to help her family. But the memory of her sick mother pushed her forward. That night, as the city lights glowed in neon colors, Zola put on borrowed clothes and prepared to walk a path she had once thought unthinkable. Her heart pounded with fear and uncertainty. Word of Zola's decision soon reached the village. Some people were shocked, others shrugged, saying times were too tough to judge anyone's choices. A few men felt uneasy, worried about what this shift in women's roles meant for the village. Mothers whispered concerns about their daughters, fearing a future where this type of work might become the norm. Slowly, a tension formed between tradition and survival. Meanwhile, more women quietly followed in Zola's footsteps. They, too, left for the city under the cover of night, returning weeks later with enough money to settle debts or buy medicine. Each trip deepened the transformation of the village. Some older men tried to forbid it, but they had no real power to stop the tide of desperation. Zola's first night in the city was harder than she ever imagined. She felt exposed and ashamed, standing on a dimly lit street corner. She met men who asked questions or made comments that made her heart pound. Jora stayed nearby, offering quiet support. By the end of the night, Zola felt numb, clutching her first earnings with shaking hands. She told herself it was only temporary, a sacrifice for her family. In the following days, Zola forced herself to keep going. She found that the city's nightlife was a hidden world of people seeking comfort, escape, or just someone to talk to. Not every client was cruel, but the experience left her feeling hollow. Still, she sent money home, and her mother's health began to improve. Each time she sent money, she felt a complicated mix of relief and regret. Back in Korora, villagers noticed that Zola's siblings wore new clothes and had more food on their table. This sparked both envy and criticism. Some neighbors gossiped that Zola had traded her dignity for material goods. Others quietly admired her for doing whatever it took to save her family. The village atmosphere grew tense as more women considered following her path. A local elder named Gondo tried to call a community meeting. He spoke about the importance of moral values and how the village risked losing its traditions. But when asked to provide solutions for joblessness or hunger, Gondo had none. His words, though wise, felt empty to the many families struggling to survive. The women continued to live in small groups, determined to find a better life somehow. As weeks turned into months, the number of women traveling to the city grew. They learned from each other, sharing tips on safe places to stay and which streets to avoid. Some set up a small network, helping newcomers adjust to the difficult life of sex work. The money they sent home paid for medicine, school fees, and sometimes even repairs to the old huts. This newfound financial power changed family dynamics. Men who remained in the village found themselves overshadowed by the women's earnings. Some felt relieved that there was finally money in the house, while others felt shamed or powerless. Quietly, relationships began to shift. Fewer weddings took place because many young women had chosen a path that left no room for a traditional family life. The once familiar rhythms of village life were dissolving before everyone's eyes. In the city, Zola's reputation grew among fellow workers. She was known for her kind nature and willingness to help those who were new to the trade. Although she disliked the work, she managed to keep her spirit gentle, offering a kind word or a listening ear. Some of her clients found comfort in her warmth, while she struggled to keep her own heart intact. Night after night, she soldiered on. Back in Korora, her mother's health improved, thanks to the consistent money Zola sent. Her younger siblings were able to attend school regularly. Despite the moral debates, many villagers saw tangible benefits from the money flowing in. The tension between survival and values reached a new peak. Some families openly thanked Zola, while others warned that she had lost her way. The lines of judgment were never so blurred. One day, a small group of men from the village decided to travel to the city to see what was happening. They wanted to understand why their wives, sisters, and daughters were not returning as the same people. They wandered the city streets in disbelief, seeing the nightlife that had claimed so many. They glimpsed the clubs, the bars, and the bright signs that promised easy money in exchange for companionship. Among these men was Juma, a farmer whose wife had left a month before. Juma felt anger rise within him as he spotted his wife talking to a stranger outside a neon-lit bar. He confronted her, but she broke down, explaining that without this work, their children would starve. Shocked and conflicted, Juma realized the complexity of the situation and returned home with a heavy heart. When Juma and the other men returned to Nkurara, they shared their stories with the community. Many were stunned to learn how harsh city life was for these women. They also realized that the women were not simply chasing luxury, they were surviving. Some men felt guilt, believing they had failed to provide. Others were angry, blaming the women for tarnishing the village's name. The village divided into two camps. The first camp believed the women should come back and return to traditional roles, even if that meant living in poverty. The second camp argued that desperate times called for desperate measures, and that the women deserved respect for bringing money into their families. The conflict simmered, with no clear solution in sight. The old sense of unity that once defined Korora was fading fast. As the debate raged, the number of women leaving for the city continued to grow. Those who stayed behind felt lonely and uncertain about the village's future. Younger girls saw the wealth returning from the city and began to wonder if this was their only path to a stable life. Elders like Gondo tried to speak of tradition and purity, but their words felt powerless in the face of hunger. Some families quietly celebrated the improved living conditions brought by city earnings. New wells were dug, children got better clothes, and a few even built stronger homes. The moral cost, however, remained a source of tension. Neighbors no longer trusted each other fully, and a new question haunted everyone's mind: how far would you go to ensure your family's survival? Zola, meanwhile, found herself both admired and pitied. She had become a sort of leader among the women in the city, showing them how to handle tricky clients or find safe places to sleep. Yet, her heart was heavy. Each day, she felt the sting of shame and longed for a simpler life. She missed the smell of home-cooked meals in Korora and the sound of the river flowing gently. Sometimes, she would dream of a future where she could return home without fear of judgment. She imagined teaching children again, perhaps opening a small school. But reality woke her every night as she prepared to earn the money her family needed. She kept telling herself this was only temporary, clinging to the hope that one day, her life could change for the better. The transformation of Nkurara became a topic of gossip in nearby villages. People whispered that Nkurara was the place where no more virgins remain, implying that every young woman had turned to sex work. Some travelers avoided passing through, fearing moral corruption or scandal. Others came out of curiosity, hoping to see if the rumors were true. This outside attention added another layer of pressure to the already struggling community. Local leaders in neighboring areas shook their heads in disapproval, yet offered no solutions to the poverty that gripped the region. Some suggested sending relief or aid, but bureaucracy and lack of funds slowed every effort. Meanwhile, Nkurara's reputation sank lower, and the villagers felt increasingly isolated. This stigma only deepened the women's resolve to earn money however they could. At the city's edge, a new club opened, attracting many of the village women with promises of better pay and safer conditions. The owner was a business-savvy man who saw an opportunity in the growing number of desperate villagers. He offered small rooms, daily meals, and a set wage, conditions that sounded better than roaming the streets. Many women, including some from Korora, rushed to sign up. Zola hesitated, unsure if she wanted to join a club. She heard rumors that once you joined, living wasn't easy. But the pay was indeed better, and the environment might be safer than standing on street corners. The choice gnawed at her, and she spent long hours in her tiny rented room, weighing the pros and cons. Survival still loomed large in her mind. Eventually, Zola decided to try working at the club. On her first night, she was surprised by the formal setup, a bright stage, music, and private booths where clients paid for time with the women. Everything felt controlled, but also impersonal. Zola found herself learning a new set of rules: how to dress, how to talk, and how to avoid trouble with rowdy customers. It was a different world from her village life. She met other women from various places, each with a similar story of desperation. They formed a quiet sisterhood, supporting each other through tough nights. Zola's earnings increased, allowing her to send more money home. Despite the better conditions, she still wrestled with the moral cost. Each day, she reminded herself this was for her family, for their future, and for their survival. News of Zola's move to the club reached Nkurara. Some villagers saw it as a step up, admiring her ability to earn more. Others felt it was just a deeper plunge into shame. Zola's mother, still recovering, prayed daily for her daughter's safety. She thanked Zola for the money but also longed for her to come home. The mother's heart was torn between gratitude and sorrow for what Zola had become. Meanwhile, younger women in the village took note. They asked Mama Denny how to contact the club manager, hoping to secure a stable income as well. The shift in the village's female population was undeniable. Almost every household had a mother, daughter, or sister who had tried or considered sex work. The village's once strong moral foundation was shaken to its core. At the club, Zola worked nightly, meeting clients who ranged from kind to cruel. She developed a thick skin, learning how to smile politely even when she felt uncomfortable. The manager, though stern, was quick to protect the women from violent customers, knowing that a safe environment kept the business thriving. In this strange way, Zola found a fragile sense of security, even though her heart longed for home. Outside the club, life in the city continued at a frantic pace. Zola often felt lost in the crowds during her daytime errands. She missed the quiet roads of Nkurara, where everyone knew her name. Still, she forced herself to remain focused on her goal, to provide for her family. Each paycheck sent home felt like a small victory, even if it came with a heavy emotional price. Back in the village, rumors began to spread about certain men from neighboring towns visiting Korora, hoping to find easy relationships. They believed the gossip that every woman there was available. This caused uproar among the men who remained. Fights broke out in local bars, and accusations flew that the women's choices had invited shameful visitors. Fear and anger simmered, making the village an increasingly tense place to live. In response, some fathers tried to keep their daughters indoors, hoping to shield them from temptation or harassment. But the lure of quick money was strong. With each passing day, the gap between tradition and survival grew wider. Mothers who had once taught their daughters about purity now found themselves encouraging them to earn money, saying it was the only way out of crushing poverty. An unexpected crisis hit when a serious illness swept through the region. With so many men away or unemployed, and the women either in the city or planning to leave, basic healthcare needs were left unattended. A traveling nurse named Miko arrived, shocked by the situation. She tried to educate the villagers on health risks, but found it difficult to reach the women who spent most of their time far from home. Miko warned that if the women were engaging in sex work without proper precautions, disease could spread rapidly. The village elders realized this could worsen their troubles. They organized a small makeshift clinic, urging the women to visit whenever they returned. However, the stigma surrounding their work made many women avoid these public health checks. Suspicion and fear only grew, further straining the fragile community. In the city, Zola heard about the health crisis back home. Worried for her mother, she decided to send extra money to buy medicine. She also encouraged her sisters to visit the new clinic. Yet, she knew her own work environment exposed her to risks. She had seen some colleagues fall ill, and she realized how unprepared she was to deal with such threats. She spoke with the club manager about safety measures, but he insisted it was each woman's responsibility. So, Zola and a few friends arranged for a private doctor's visit, paying from their own pockets. The cost was high, but they valued their health. This sense of urgency added a new layer of stress to their already challenging lives, reminding them that survival came at many levels. Back in Korora, the local nurse Miko teamed up with Gondo the elder. They started visiting each household, hoping to talk openly about the dangers of unprotected encounters. Some people slammed doors in their faces, refusing to believe that such a conversation was needed. Others welcomed them, desperate for any help they could get. Slowly, Miko realized the root of the problem was not just money, but also a lack of proper education. With the women mostly away, Miko and Gondo faced an uphill battle. They left pamphlets, tried to schedule group discussions, and encouraged families to keep lines of communication open. But many villagers were too ashamed or embarrassed to talk about sex work openly. The silence around the topic only fueled more confusion and fear. The village felt trapped in a spiral of desperation and secrecy. Zola started sending letters home more often, urging her siblings to stay safe and see Nurse Miko if they needed help. In her own life, she grew increasingly weary of her job at the club. She had saved a decent amount of money, enough to pay off debts and secure her mother's medication. Yet, each night she wondered if she could truly walk away from the higher income she had become used to. One evening, she sat in her small room and penned a letter to her mother, explaining that she planned to return soon. Her heart ached with the possibility of facing judgment and scorn, but she felt a longing to see her family again. She sealed the letter, tears slipping down her cheeks, praying that returning home would be a new start rather than another ordeal. The day came when Zola boarded a rickety bus back to Nkurara. The journey was long, and the roads were bumpy. She stared out the window at the passing fields, remembering the simpler days of her childhood. She felt both excitement and dread. What if her neighbors rejected her? What if her siblings looked at her with shame? Still, she had made her decision. She wanted to see home again. When she finally arrived, the village felt strangely quiet. She noticed fewer women around, and many of the men wore resigned expressions. Some recognized her and looked away. Others nodded politely. She took a deep breath and headed to her family's hut. Her mother, now frail but stable, opened the door with tears in her eyes. They embraced, each finding solace in the other's presence. In the following days, Zola tried to settle back into village life. She helped her siblings gather water, cooked meals, and even tried to revive her old dream of teaching. However, the villagers' whispers trailed her everywhere. Children pointed, and older women exchanged knowing looks. Though she had brought money and helped her mother recover, the stigma of her city work clung to her like a stubborn shadow. Despite the cold reception, Zola remained determined. She reached out to Gondo and Nurse Miko, offering to share what she had learned about health and safety. They welcomed her help, though they knew some villagers would never fully accept her. Together, they held small sessions in quiet corners, talking to younger girls about the harsh realities of sex work and the importance of informed choices. As Zola walked through the village, she saw the toll of the crisis on everyday life. Many homes stood empty, their women off in the city. Some families had improved living conditions, but they lacked emotional unity. She noticed the sadness in people's eyes, a sense of lost pride. She realized that while money could fix certain problems, it could not restore the village's sense of wholeness. Men who remained felt conflicted. They appreciated the financial relief but also felt they had lost their traditional roles as providers. Some became distant, others fell into drinking, and a few tried to form committees to bring alternative jobs to the area. Nothing seemed to stick. Zola found herself wishing there was a magic solution to bring back the village she once knew. Meanwhile, in the city, the club manager noticed fewer new recruits coming from Korora. He worried that his stream of workers might dry up. He began sending recruiters to the village, promising bigger bonuses and safer conditions. This tactic led to arguments between those who saw it as exploitation and those who saw it as a chance to escape poverty. The tension in Korora soared. Zola was alarmed by these new recruiters. She confronted one who came to her mother's hut, telling him to leave her family alone. The recruiter sneered, saying she was a hypocrite. After all, she had worked at the club and earned good money. Zola felt anger and shame collide, but she stood her ground. She would not let the cycle continue if she could help it. In a village meeting, Gondo pleaded for unity. He explained that the recruiters were not saviors, but opportunists seeking profit. Zola stepped forward, her voice shaking as she described her own experiences in the city. She spoke of the dangers, the health risks, and the emotional toll. Some villagers listened with tearful eyes, realizing how far their community had fallen from the peaceful place it once was. Others, however, argued that without these recruiters, they had no real means to survive. "Words won't fill our stomachs," one father said bitterly. Zola felt torn, understanding that desperation was powerful. Still, she knew firsthand how destructive this path could be. The meeting ended without a clear decision, leaving everyone uneasy and more divided than ever. Late that night, Zola walked by the river, recalling childhood memories. She thought about how she had once dreamed of being a teacher, of guiding young minds toward a better future. She wondered if there was still a chance to use her knowledge to help the village in a positive way. Her heart ached for the women who felt forced into the city's nightlife, as well as for the families who depended on their earnings. Suddenly, she had an idea. What if she could create a small cooperative in the village, teaching women other skills to earn money? It might be a long shot, but perhaps crafts, sewing, or farming improvements could bring in income. She hurried home, determined to share her thoughts with anyone willing to listen. She hoped this spark of an idea could ignite real change. In the following days, Zola spoke to Gondo, Nurse Miko, and a few other open-minded villagers about starting a skills cooperative. She proposed a simple plan: gather resources, teach basic crafts or trades, and then find buyers in nearby towns. Miko agreed to help with organization, while Gondo promised to gather the elders. It was a fragile plan, but it offered a glimmer of hope for an alternative path. Word spread, and a small group of women, both those who had never left and those who had returned from the city, attended the first meeting. They were cautious but curious. Zola demonstrated how to make simple woven mats, explaining that if they worked together, they could produce enough to sell at local markets. The idea of working at home rather than in the city began to stir cautious optimism. The first few weeks were tough. The women lacked proper materials and had to rely on borrowed or makeshift tools. Yet, they pushed forward. Zola noticed that as they worked side by side, conversations began to flow. Some opened up about their city experiences, sharing painful stories of abuse or fear. Others spoke of financial relief and gratitude. Slowly, they realized they were not enemies or strangers, but neighbors with a shared goal. They produced a small batch of woven mats, baskets, and simple clothing. Gondo arranged for a local trader to visit and see their products. Though the prices offered were modest, it was a start. The women felt a flicker of pride in earning money without leaving the village. They knew it would not match the high earnings of sex work, but it was honest, and that felt good. News of the cooperative reached some of the women still in the city. A few returned, curious if this new venture could truly support them. When they arrived, they were met with mixed reactions. Some villagers welcomed them warmly, while others still held grudges. Nevertheless, they joined the cooperative, bringing new ideas on designs and marketing. The group grew, and their little workshop hummed with activity each morning. Zola felt a renewed sense of purpose. Teaching others gave her the same joy she once felt when she dreamed of being a schoolteacher. Each successful sale was a small victory. She knew not everyone would leave sex work behind, some had debts too large, or families too big. But at least now, there was an alternative for those seeking a different path. As the cooperative expanded, they started sending representatives to nearby towns to sell their crafts. The modest profits were shared among members, enough to buy more materials and help with basic household needs. Men in the village watched with a mix of relief and uncertainty. They saw women stepping into roles as breadwinners without resorting to city nightlife. Some men felt pride, while others struggled to accept this shift in tradition. A few local traders expressed interest in the unique designs, especially when they heard the backstory of women overcoming hardship. The cooperative gained modest fame, and travelers visited Nkurara to see the workshop firsthand. Slowly, the village's reputation began to change, from a place of desperation to a community trying to rebuild. Still, the road to full recovery was long, and many obstacles remained. Despite the cooperative success, the nightclub recruiters did not disappear. They continued to visit, luring women with promises of fast money. Some villagers were still too poor or too impatient to wait for cooperative profits. Zola tried to dissuade them, but not everyone listened. A few women left anyway, believing that no craft income could match the wages of sex work. This painful reality kept the village from fully uniting. Zola refused to give up. She organized more training sessions, teaching new crafts and involving younger girls. She hoped that by offering real skills from an early age, they would be less tempted by quick money in the city. The cooperative began to feel like a small beacon of hope, yet the village's future still hung in a delicate balance between old struggles and new possibilities. One evening, Mama Denny returned to the village unexpectedly. She had stopped her city work after saving enough to secure a small plot of land. She approached Zola and the cooperative, offering her help. Many were surprised, remembering Mama Denny as the first to embrace sex work. Now, she admitted that she was tired of the danger and loneliness of city life. She hoped to start fresh in the village she once called home. Her arrival sent a strong message. If someone like Mama Denny, who had profited greatly from the city, was seeking a different path, perhaps the cooperative truly offered a better future. With her experience, she helped the group understand how to market their goods more effectively. She also spoke openly about the reality of sex work, giving younger women a clear picture of its risks and rewards. As the cooperative gained more members, the atmosphere in Korora slowly began to shift. People noticed that fewer women were leaving for the city. Families who had once been torn apart by desperation started to see a glimmer of unity. The men who remained in the village began helping with the logistics of selling crafts, transporting goods to markets, and maintaining the workshop space. A fragile hope took root. Still, not everyone was convinced. Some older villagers felt the damage to their reputation was too great to fix. Others believed that the money from the city was still more reliable. But every small success story, like a child's new school uniform bought with cooperative earnings, boosted the group's morale. It was as if each handmade basket or mat symbolized a step toward restoring the village's lost dignity. Zola received a letter from one of her former city colleagues, a woman named Rina, who was pregnant and frightened. She asked if Nkurara's cooperative would accept her. Zola brought this request to the group, and they agreed to help. When Rina arrived, she was exhausted and carrying only a small bag of clothes. The cooperative welcomed her warmly, offering her a place to stay and a chance to learn weaving. Seeing Rina's relief, Zola was reminded of her own first days in the city. The cycle of desperation was finally being challenged. For every woman who returned, a story of survival was replaced by one of resilience and hope. Though the village still struggled with its past, these moments of compassion and acceptance hinted that a genuine transformation might be possible. As the cooperative grew stronger, local leaders began to notice. Gondo, once only a voice of tradition, embraced the changes. He worked with the group to organize a small craft fair, inviting people from neighboring villages. Word spread that Nkurara was hosting an event to showcase the talents of its women. The plan was ambitious, but if successful, it could change the region's view of Nkurara forever. Zola and the others worked day and night, producing extra goods to display. Men helped build stalls and set up the fairground near the river. Children practiced songs and dances to entertain visitors. Even those who had once judged the women seemed excited about the fair, sensing that it might bring a new chapter of respect and opportunity to the village. On the day of the fair, a steady stream of visitors arrived. They walked through stalls lined with colorful mats, baskets, and embroidered fabrics. Many were surprised by the quality and variety of the items. They asked questions about the cooperative, learning that it was formed by women seeking an alternative to city nightlife. The air buzzed with curiosity, respect, and even a bit of admiration. Gondo gave a welcoming speech, thanking everyone for coming. He praised the women's hard work and introduced Zola as one of the main organizers. Zola, shy but proud, stepped forward. She spoke briefly about the village's hardships and how the cooperative aimed to offer a better future. The crowd applauded, some with tears in their eyes, as they realized that hope could indeed blossom from despair. The fair was a success. Many items sold out, and the cooperative earned enough money to expand. They bought better tools and started planning workshops for younger villagers. The men, too, felt renewed pride in seeing outsiders respect their community. Rumors of Nkurara's transformation began to replace the old gossip about no more virgins. Visitors left with handmade goods and stories of a village rising above adversity. Zola walked through the fair at sunset, listening to the happy chatter of buyers and sellers. She thought of her nights in the city, how lost she felt, and how close she came to giving up. Now, she saw neighbors working together, forging a new identity for Korora. Her heart felt lighter than it had in a long time, filled with cautious optimism for what lay ahead. After the fair, more women returned from the city, curious about the cooperative's success. Some continued to do sex work part-time but spent the rest of their days weaving or sewing in the village. While not everyone left the city trade entirely, the stigma began to lift. People saw that these women were also mothers, daughters, and sisters who simply wanted a chance to live without shame or hunger. Gradually, the phrase, "no more virgins," lost its sting. Instead, people talked about how the village was rebuilding. Zola knew that deep wounds remained, but at least now, there was an alternative. Young girls saw role models who worked with thread and fabric instead of neon lights and bar counters. The transformation was not complete, but it was real and growing stronger each day. In a final effort to secure the village's future, Gondo and Zola sought government support. They wrote letters to local officials, detailing the cooperative's achievements and asking for training programs or small business grants. After weeks of waiting, a government representative visited. He was impressed by the unity and dedication shown by the villagers. He promised to recommend the cooperative for a small development grant that could further boost production. This news sparked celebration. Villagers gathered around a bonfire that night, singing songs of hope. Some of the women who had once felt only shame danced in the firelight, proud of their new skills and the respect they had earned. Zola watched quietly, feeling gratitude and relief wash over her. For the first time in a long while, Nkurara glowed with genuine happiness. With the government's support, the cooperative flourished. They built a proper workshop, hired a teacher for the children, and organized regular health checkups with Nurse Miko. Though some women still chose to work in the city, the village no longer lived under a dark cloud of desperation. New stories replaced old gossip, and the sense of shame lifted, giving way to a quiet pride in survival and reinvention. And so, the village once known for having no more virgins slowly transformed into a place of resilience. Families reconnected, young girls found hope in learning skills, and men began to see the strength of working together with the women. Zola, at last, felt a sense of peace, knowing that while the past could not be erased, the future could be shaped by compassion, cooperation, and the unwavering will to overcome hardship. Witness this gripping transformation of a village torn by crisis. From despair to hope, follow the journey of resilience and redemption. Thank you very much for watching this video up till this point. Please give it a thumbs up to help grow my small YouTube channel. Please kindly subscribe to my channel if you have not yet done so, and turn on post notifications so you get all notifications when I post very interesting contents like this one. Kindly go through my channel if you have not done so yet. I have very interesting topics, stories and videos on my channel. Please leave a comment about this video in the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. It will help me improve when I see you guys in my next video. Have a great time.